and we had an administration that had a bunch of problems. I don't know if you heard this, the name E.D. Montague. He was the president, and there was a big scandal with him. And then this new group came on and replaced him, and they were in place for the last couple of years. And I was working with them, but as it turns out, I had to run against the previous president because just between me and you and the gatepost, I was hopeful they would do better than what they did. And so I ran. That's the long and short of it.
Uh-huh. Good for you. And I see you've managed to retain, the organization's managed to retain a good chunk of that as ending assets in the end of 2021. So you got a lot of money in, but you've managed to save quite a bit of it, which is great. And I got the note that said you had some difficulties with the treasurer, perhaps starting a business that is not compatible with the nonprofit in some way. So jump right in and tell me what can I do to help you, and what's your goal for this meeting, so I'll
We
know
had a
how to
couple
best.
of the last treasurer. I think there's some conflict of interest type things, and he was an insurance agent, and treasurer before this last one was an insurance agent. I think he signed a contract to give insurance policies to the branch, which obviously the conflict of interest. And then, when they left office, they left money. They took some computers, some other things, and we had another last administration put out a couple of demand letters for that, and so they've not responded to the demand letters. But the primary reason why I'm calling you is because this current treasurer, his name is McManus, in my opinion, began to troll our membership. In fact, what he essentially did was he saw a young lady who I had appointed as my secretary. As it turned out, about 8 years ago, she got in trouble, was convicted of taking some money, etc. And since that 8 years, however, she's paid her debt, and she really has made recompense and has worked for a couple, three other organizations. She worked for the Urban League. She's now the COO of a NAMAC organization. And I don't know if you know it or not, but the NAACP is one of its main missions about giving second chances. And so I appointed this young lady to my secretary position. And there is some interaction between the secretary and the treasurer, but the secretary came after her. He wanted to cut her neck off, and he went beyond me. He went to our insurer and sowed a lot of doubt about the risk and liability to the entire branch. And of course, I went in and talked with the insurers and the underwriters and found that there were some restrictions on her. If she were to actually steal money, then she wouldn't be covered. But the rest of the board, according to the underwriter and the agent, is that we did have directors and officers insurance. And so I tried to convince our board that we did have directors, officers insurance, and any liability that happened in the future would only really occur to this young lady. And there was not a high probability this young lady would take the money and away because we had a lot of internal controls. For example, in our bylaws, uh, no one can distribute, can make a requisition and distribute money if it doesn't get over $100. Uh, no one can make those distributions without the approval of the executive body. So, and then I went to start the CPA that we had listed, and he looked at our controls and said that basically this secretary had no access to anything of any substantial amount. So I was good with my secretary. She's a very smart, bright young lady.
Yeah.
But our treasurer went around me,
Yeah.
went to the board, he tried to poison the water, and one of our board members was concerned that we didn't have any insurance through our current policy. And I had tried to convince her that I had talked with the underwriter and the agent, and policy where the crime provision of the policy only applies to that one person, which is her, if in fact she were to use and embezzle money and try to, then the policy would become null and void. So in the conversation with this one board person, she started alluding to attorneys and blah blah blah. And it just really had a distorted idea about how we were going to move forward. And I told her what I would do is try to get a hold of an attorney that deals with these issues on on basis, so we could affirm or sort of give some assurances that as a board we were okay. And so that's, I'm here as a precursor to try to figure out whether or not your services could be valuable. That's one area. The other area is the governance. This treasurer also tried to imply that the president only has a functionary position in this organization and had no ability to do anything outside of what the executive body, the real controlling aspect of this particular branch had to do with the executive body and not the president. So, and
And when you say executive body, James, just real quick, does the executive body mean the board or an executive committee of the
I'm
board, or
referring
who is the
to
executive body when you refer
uh,
to that?
chairs of our standing committee, myself as president, the secretary, and the treasurer, and really the first vice president and the second vice president. So there's, people who are elected on our last election are part of that executive body, but I had the ability to appoint vacant positions. So everybody that's chair of a committee, plus the secretary and the officers that
Got it.
are standing officers.
Got it. Yeah. And so the bylaws must be the
Yes,
place where that gives you the power
are,
to fill
and the
vacancies. Is that
bylaws,
right?
the bylaws,
Okay.
it says that uh, the president would appoint and the executive body would approve, shall approve. It doesn't say may approve or can, perhaps it says shall approve. And so I interpret that in, that's what y'all supposed to be. It says shall approve. It doesn't mean, but I'm a democratic person, so when I submit appointments, I submit the resumes, I submit everything, and if there's some real objections, then I'm amenable to changing my appointments. If the executive body see that there's issues, then I'm not trying to push for an appeal, if you know what I mean. So that's or so the
Yeah, right.
interpretation of the bylaws and the governance of this organization needs to be sorted out so people would be real clear on whose roles are what and how this plays out. Does that make any sense?
It sure does. And honestly, it's a kind of an odd thing in legal writing that when bylaws or something like that says that the executive director selects or nominates or in some way presents, and then the board shall approve. That's always interpreted to mean that the board has a choice, but the person, the vacancy isn't filled until the board has approved of the president's appointment. So even though it says shall approve, if that ever came to an actual fight, the courts would almost certainly read that to mean that the board's approval is required, but the board's not required to approve. It's just that the appointment's not final until the board has approved it as well. But it would have been better if someone had written that the vacancies are filled with the president nominating and the board with the board's approval instead of shall approve, because it makes it sound like they have to, but it
What you
wouldn't be
do
interpreted
is,
that way.
when you have that gray area, I look at precedent situations or other organizations, I mean, the national and the regional people, they have that, there's three levels above this branch level, and when you look at how they operate versus
Right.
what the law says, that's pretty much the way it operates. In fact, my conversation conversation with the secretary, the regional secretary. She said, well, you know, when you come in as a president, really the onus is pretty much on you. I mean, this is your administration, even though it doesn't say that. It says the onus is on you as the president, and so you're managing a administration that is really like set up by you as the president, and that's why. And when you start talking about being able to
Uh-huh.
appoint, it implies that you have the ability to, whether you know the buck stops with you as president. So that's the application versus
Sure.
you know what the legal. Uh,
Right, yeah. And I notice your NAACP Chapter 1120B. I noticed that it is a public benefit with members, and with members usually means that the members
yes,
elect the
I was
board.
elected by the membership. We, you know, back in December, you know, back in yeah, we had a late election this year, and I was elected by the membership. I mean, I had, you know, I had
Yeah,
significant votes over the previous president, so that's why I was elected.
got it. And does the membership not only elect
Yes,
board
they
members, but
do.
also
They
choose the
choose
officers?
all the officers, all the standing officers, the treasurer, the assistant treasurer, etc. down the line. But in my case, there were several positions no one ran for, so I wound up appointing those individuals. And in fact, this treasurer that we're talking about was elected to be treasurer, and I felt like he had done such a good job. I appointed him to be the actual, he was assistant treasurer, I appointed him to be the treasurer. And little did I know that, I don't know whether that went to his head or he started eating, you know, sugar gums or bubble gum and stuff, and whatever he started freaking out on us. And there were several situations in which I thought overstepped himself, going to our insurer and inquiring about this and inquiring about that without coming back to the executive body. And then he went and intimidated he called her, our secretary, and asked her to resign without any authority to do so. He went and asked this woman, and she felt like she was being bullied. And that's primarily the reason why he's no longer with us, because he went out on the limb and decided he's going to take matters into his own hands and tell her she needed to resign.
Yeah, and that, is a conversation he has a legal right to have, First Amendment rights and free speech and all of that. He certainly has a right to tell someone, I think you should resign. But doing so without communicating with you and the rest of the board and the other officers is really a very bad process that's bound to cause friction and problems. So although he had a legal right to do it, it was not smart. It was not good
Yeah,
in an
of course,
organizational setting to do that
the
way.
secretary interpreted it as being bullied and harassed. And I don't know whether there was any legal consequences coming back from her about his approach and what he did and how he did, whether or not that would have put the organization in jeopardy. I don't know. It's one of the reasons why we need to try to sort this out, because she wrote a very compassionate and emotional, you know, kind of paragraph about what he had done and what her feelings were. So it was not really appropriate for him to go down the road as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But that could be.
Right. I agree. That's the kind of thing that needs to be done with a lot more communication and getting people to buy in
So those are the
or
primary
not.
reasons why I called you. You know, and you know, this whole idea of the bylaws and the interpretation about what my role, what the other officers' role is as prescribed by the bylaws. And of course, our local bylaws are a takeoff from the national bylaws. We,
Right. Yeah. And just to ask, I've got lots of paperwork here on your group
yeah,
already, but I don't have the bylaws in the file that we just started.
I'm sorry.
Do you know, did you send us your bylaws yet?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Do you know, did you send us your bylaws yet?
But I didn't know what nobody asked me to do that. So again, I'm box office. You know,
That's that's fine. I was just asking if you had, I'd take a quick look now. So it sounds like one of the things that would be good would be to have us review your bylaws and see, are they updated? Are they up to date with Oregon state law and changes that have been made? And are there things in them that are unclear that need to be clarified? And so are they in compliance basically? And are they clear on all the necessary items? And do they have everything they need in them? Um, would you like, we read, write, and review bylaws every single day for the last 30 years. We're really good at it and efficient. Would you like us to
yeah,
do
I
a
think
quick
so,
review of
but
your bylaws and let
again,
you know what we see?
go back to my executive body, because I told them I was going to engage you just to see whether or not what your services would be, and then the first thing they're going to ask me is what it's going to cost
Yeah,
us, and
right. So, so when we review bylaws, we do it hourly. The person who would do the reviewing, one of our attorneys here, is $250 an hour. And generally, we can review a set of bylaws and see what needs done in, you know, something along the lines of easily an hour to an hour and a half, where we write a red line, attract changes, copy making suggestions for changes and things like that. So you're looking at something in the range of around 400, 350, 400,
right,
450,
right,
depending on the condition of the bylaws. How much in
all
there
right,
needs to be fixed up a bit. But certainly that's something you could go by, and I'll write it in my notes. Our expectation is that it'd be somewhere around, probably around
so what
$400,
about the
350,
insurance
400.
issue, and who can speak to authorities outside for, as an authority for the branch, and are you in a position to look um, at our policy and determine what, the legalese and policy had people going off. And I understood it because I had a conference with the underwriter and the agent who very plainly told me we were covered, but they wouldn't unequivocally say that like that in an email to me. And so that's why I'm having this conversation with you. I felt like we're covered, and of course, people on the board feel uncomfortable with my interpretation of the bylaws at the conference call, because I may have the conference call for them, but yet still, unless it comes out of the mouth of an attorney, ain't nobody going to happen. I mean, you guys seem to be the final word for this stuff.
Yeah, and we certainly can review your insurance policy and advise you on it. And we do that kind of a thing all the time. The thing that I would, what like you wanted, what the gold standard would be to have an email or something in writing back from the agent or the underwriter saying, yes, you're covered for this specific thing. So, we can advise you, but they're the ones that are gonna, interpret their own policy and defend you or not. So, did the agent you have or the underwriter tell you that specifically, if this was the question, if this treasurer were to steal money,
But
are
no,
you covered for
it
that? What
it
was the
was the
question you asked your
secretary.
agent
It was the
specifically?
secretary that was in question because of her crime. Yeah, so this policy
Right,
has
yeah, your
a
secretary.
crime provision. And of course, obviously, the crime provision only comes into play if there's a claim. In other words, if she stole money, then the crime provision will include coverage for her because she had a previous, indictment or whatever you want to call it. So it was restricted. I mean, any restrictions on the policy about non-coverage was isolated to that one individual, not the entire board. And I thought that made sense to me because nobody else on the board has any complaint that I'm aware of. We don't have a process by which we ask for background information on people who come to our, to come as volunteers to our board. So that's the piece that,
Yes.
and again, the lady that had the question on our board was referring to a bunch of attorneys. I guess they had gone outside the board and talked to our agent and our underwriters, and they they indicated to her that, what does your attorney say? And of course, we didn't have no attorney, so that's why I hastened on to have a conversation with you about this. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and certainly that's something we can do for you and
Yeah.
help you and
Okay.
your board figure
So, you
that
got any
out.
idea what that would cost?
And if you know, it's often helpful to have a short meeting with your board as part of this, and to report back to them and hear any questions and answer them. So, likely. If you put us on the agenda for 15, 20 minutes of one of your regular board meetings, so you don't have to call a special meeting and get your board to show up. And so we could just appear in your board meeting, put us on the agenda for 15, 20 minutes to explain the answer, and review the policy. And so as I understand it, the concern the board has is, are they in danger
Yeah,
of
that's
being
pretty much
personally liable for anything?
so. And of
Is
course,
that
my
right?
agent told me off the record, they didn't write it. He said, "Yeah, of course you're covered. You got directors and officers insurance, and that applies to everybody on your executive body. And of course, the only person that doesn't apply to it is the person who may have had an infraction, which was my secretary 10 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever it is. The rest of you all
Right.
are free and clear. Of course, if anybody sues us as a result of that, then we also have that directors and officers of insurance that will cover legal expenses. So that only makes sense to me.
Exactly.
But
That's right.
when people are looking for ways to disqualify a person, or they want to have boogeymans, it all kind of visions of boogeyman pops up in their head.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah. Right. So the answer to your second question is, we would charge this by the hour. This probably, the meeting with your board is something I would do. And my charge is $2.95 an hour as the senior attorney here. And likely the review of the policy, a phone call with your insurance agent if we needed it, and then a presentation to the board. Sounds to me like something in the range of an hour and a half kind of thing, which means that we're looking at something around $400 to 500, something in that range,
well,
350
that
to
sounds good.
450.
I would take that back to them. And the other item is, we're going through a transition, and I just want to know, this treasurer that left, the treasurer that left didn't leave on the best of terms, and still has our books, has our documents and so forth, even though he has resigned. Do we, I mean, if worst case
Yeah.
scenario, we have problems trying to get all our documents from this individual. Is there a process and legal process to get those documents over in a way?
Yeah, yeah, there is. And it's unfortunately, it's not that uncommon that you've got directors or officers, board members who
Yeah.
didn't return everything, and then you can't get them to do it. So what we generally do is, when you say, that it's the right time for it, we write a letter on our law firm letterhead saying you have a fiduciary duty that you still owe to return all of the documents, passwords, keys, records, and equipment of the organization. The organization has requested this of you. If you don't return it, it is literally viewed as a form of theft of the organization's assets and resources. The organization has a duty, a fiduciary duty, literally, to ensure that they are good stewards of the organization's assets. And that means if they need to take legal action to get this back from you, that they have a duty to do so. Please don't put us into this situation where we have to take legal action against you just to get the organization's own assets back. And please return this, return everything, and what I would do is have a list from you of what you think they have. Please return all of the following within 2 weeks if you don't do so. And then, end with, if you have an attorney, please take this letter to your attorney and have them give us a call. So that's the way we would usually, next step is when you're ready for that. It can be viewed as an escalation. And so, usually the first thing is ask them for it. And then if they don't have someone who knows them more closely, ask them for it. and then send them an email or a letter asking them for it. But if at the end of 3 or 4 tries they haven't done it, then usually that's the time to have a letter like this from a law firm
Yeah,
saying, hey,
I
give us
like
the
that.
stuff or
I
this
like that.
becomes theft.
We've gone through a portion that with another outfit that, ultimately we did not get what we wanted. We still trying to, these things, these legal fees become kind of outrageous if you keep going back and you have to go back with lawyers back and forth, as you well know. So we try to do it progressively, like you said, try to gang them and plead them and all like that. So, okay, so that's that process you just explained. What would that cost us? Do you think?
Usually a letter like that is going to be,
Yeah,
30, 40 minutes, somewhere in
got
something,
you.
150
So
to
finally,
$200 each.
this is a kind of a broad-ranging thing, and you work with a lot of nonprofits that the membership, maybe not those that are employers or not part of the executive committee. Part of the last administration want to throw rocks. They want to interrupt the meeting. They want to do all kinds of nasty things to interrupt the process. And I just wanted to know, is there, I mean, we could technically, block them from being in a meeting, but I'm careful not to block anybody based upon the law, open meeting law, etc. But we got some ugly folk who, unfortunately, uh, can't accept the fact that they lost it. Sounds like a guy like Donald Trump somewhere. Has set the pattern for
Does,
the
doesn't
people who are
it?
trying to be crazy. And so I just wanted to know, is there anything based on Oregon law that has to do with controlling our meeting and having a successful meeting and that kind of thing?
Well, yeah. Depending on your bylaws, which many parts of the Oregon state law, the Oregon Nonprofit Corporation Act says specifically, it sets default and it says, unless your bylaws or articles say otherwise, the rule is this. And so to know specifically, I need to look at your bylaws since I know the statute really well. I need to look and see what your bylaws say because the bylaws often supersede what the statute provides. But given that, you certainly do have the right with a membership organization like this to control it through, the president's leadership of the meeting and making sure that, as people are speaking in turn, raising their hands. If there's problems with people bickering with each other, you can set the ground rules. If you want to stay in this meeting, address me, the chair. Don't address, don't fight and argue back with each other. And each person gets to speak once, and then other people get a turn, so no one can dominate. You can set ground rules as the president. Do your bylaws say the organization shall
No,
follow
it doesn't
Robert's Rules of Order
explicitly
in its
say that, but
meetings?
I was thinking,
Good. Good, because Robert's Rules is a pretty complicated, big set of parliamentary procedures, and it makes it
you're not
easier
required
if you're not
to
required to
that. It's
follow it,
just,
frankly.
I've been in these meetings and, people just decide they're going to disrupt the meeting and so on, etc. And I want to err on the part of trying to give people transparency and an opportunity to do it, but at the end of the day, it takes away from everybody else's time and energy and follow, to be able to conduct a efficient meeting. So, but I think,
Yeah.
given, most folks now really just want to come on Zoom, they don't want to have a physical meeting, so we can control it, like trying to, that's a good thing about the Zoom thing. Yeah, yeah, so,
You can
I
mute
just,
them. It's like, I've given you two warnings. You're speaking out of turn, and other people
yeah.
have the right to speak before you get to talk twice.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
keep trying to
yeah.
interrupt, I'll mute
Yeah,
you. You can do
so,
it.
it's, what's your first name again? It's, David. Yeah, David, those were the
David.
primary questions I have. Daniel, are you on the line here, man? Is there any questions that I left out that you have concerns that you should provide? You're the first vice president. You're the guy going to be taking over on this stuff, all this wonderful kingdom that we rule over. Are you there, D'Angelo? Okay. So, any questions or anything you
Yeah, I'm
have on
here.
your mind?
No, I don't have anything on my mind. The only thing that I just want to clarify that um, while we, like Mr. Posey said, the conversation regarding the protection for any, lawsuits or anything of that nature, um, really and I don't have these concerns, but I also understand the concerns of other people. So what I've seen is that people are just looking for something in layman's terms that very explicitly says that we are not at any fault if there's any fiduciary liability or any fiduciary malfeasance. Really, as long as we can have something like that in writing or verbalized, and I know that you said you particularly can't do that, it would be the underwriter, but I know that that's what people are looking for, and I know that
Yeah.
that is what will make or break this situation. It's very tender. And like I said, I don't share these concerns because I've taken time to really read the information and really put it together and really make sure that I understand it enough to disperse to other people. But I'm also just 31-year-old that doesn't really know much. So I know that that's what people are looking for. So if we can get something like that to ease people's concerns, then I think that this process of moving forward will be a lot more a lot smoother than it seems.
Yeah. Well, what I can say is, and that's the reason I would love to just be on the agenda and do an at-a-board meeting with them is what I'd like them to know is that state law and federal law both independently give an enormous amount of protection to the unpaid directors and officers of a nonprofit like this. The federal law is called the Federal Volunteer Protection Act, and the state law is the Oregon Nonprofit Corporation Act. And both of them basically say that the unpaid volunteer directors and officers, meaning they're not paid to come to board meetings and do the duties of director and officer, the unpaid volunteer directors and officers are immune from any personal liability whatsoever for any debts, demands, claims, lawsuits, or judgments against the nonprofit. And they're only liable if their own personal, either intentional misconduct or gross negligence caused an injury or liability is the only way that it would be, that a board member could be liable, and that's individual. So, if one board member stole money and could be liable, no other board member is implicated in that. It's individual intentional misconduct or gross negligence. So right off the bat, even without D&O insurance, the board members have huge levels of protection. D&O insurance ensures that even if they did get sued by somebody, which is very, very rare for board members to get sued anymore, D&O insurance ensures that they wouldn't have to pay anything to hire the law firm for their own defense if they were personally sued for some reason. And so with that in mind, in addition, the organization, as a 501c3 organization, could pay their defense also. The courts will almost always make whoever sues board members pay their legal fees, trying to prevent people from suing board members. And if people have any homeowners insurance or an umbrella policy, that covers them as well. So there's, a number of different layers of protection, all of which are very potent to make sure that the people who are willing to volunteer to be on these boards don't have to worry about liability. And so, I have given a short 10, 15-minute training to literally thousands of boards over the years on the details of this protection they already have. Obviously, I just gave you the 45-second Reader's Digest version. But that's what I would be telling your board is what protection they have, including but not limited to just the D&O insurance. They're really well protected, even in addition to that.
I just want to report back to my board. If they want you to say that in writing, it's going to cost them about $500, between $300 and $500. Is that right? That's what it talks about.
Yeah, and although I think it would be great to have me in a board meeting for, it's cheap, it's inexpensive, it's easy. Put us in the meeting for 10, 15 minutes. I'm also so happy to send this to you in writing as well. But I think board members get it better if they hear it and can ask and get your answers, ask questions and your answers.
I do think both would be important. I think that, and this is my opinion, that we have a special meeting up tomorrow, and I'm putting the agenda together now. We don't have any really room to put anything else on there, but
Sure,
I think the next board member, the next executive meeting makes sense. I do also think that it is something that would be nice to have in writing. I don't
Oh,
think that
yeah.
we necessarily need it, but I am the type of person that prefers to have documents to pull up in the event of a, future incident, just so we don't have to revisit a situation or call you again for the same thing. So,
Yeah,
um,
no, I completely agree. And I absolutely be fine putting it in writing. In fact, I already pretty much, know exactly what I would say, and it would be quick and inexpensive to put it in writing as well.
okay. And so I think if it's okay with you, Mr. Posey, I mean, it does make sense, in my opinion, that for the next executive meeting we have, which is, I forget the date, but it's sometime in March. I think it would make sense to have this on the agenda. And I think we also bring this to the committee that if they would like to have this in writing, that it would be a cost incurred. However, if we do pay that cost, that we have a document that we can then address and pull up in the event of any future situations. Our next executive meeting is on
Yeah,
March 14th,
I
by the way.
think I
March,
try not to take all this personally, Dave, because they beat up on me like I'm, like they don't trust me and all like that. I'm just kidding. But if it doesn't come out of the mouth of God, even though I've talked with our agent and our underwriters, I have the conference, and they explain it to me just like you could pretty much explain it to me, except they just wouldn't write it. Because really, ultimately, it all comes down as far as their concern is their claims people make these determinations, not the lawyers or anything. When they look at all the other factors, that's who really makes the determination, and they're not willing to do that legally. But I
yeah.
agree with you, Daniel. Let's take it back to our board. And listen, I want to just say that do you guys do retainers there just in case you have a legal issue or something come up like that?
I have good news for you. Because we only work for nonprofit groups and we only work for nonprofit groups we think are doing good work in the world, we go on a great deal of trust. Unlike other law firms, we virtually never ask for retainers.
Okay.
And we just are here anytime you need us. And if you have a question, you email us or call and schedule a meeting. We're there, and then we do the work as quickly and inexpensively as we can, and we send a bill at the end of the month. And because we're so committed to the groups we work with as a very mission-oriented office here, we're on your team for whenever you need us without having to
Well,
send a retainer each
I
time.
certainly greatly appreciate you taking the time to do that. I want to congratulate Daniel for forwarding your name and so forth. And I know some other organizations you work with. I mean, this is small nonprofits that already know that you work with. I know
I
you do
bet you
good
do.
work, and so I will pass this on to our board. And don't be surprised if they want to come back and have you on that March 14th meeting. And
I'd love that. What time is that meeting, James, at March 14th? I'll
it's
put it on the
typically
calendar with a
6 to
question
8
mark so that I save that time.
on the executive body meeting, 6 to 8 on 14th. That's my birthday, by the way. I probably won't be. Uh,
Oh, wow. Happy birthday on March
yeah,
14th. I hope
yeah,
I get to see you. I'll
want
sing
to
you,
get
sing happy
into
birthday
some
to
of
you.
that stuff. Sucking up some mind time or something like that. But so
There you
thank you
go.
so much. No other questions, Daniel?
Great. And just to
Okay.
say it so we're clear on
Okay.
it, no charge for today's meeting. And I've written a
Okay.
good long memo here on all the things we've talked about. We'll start up a file and then
Okay.
just wait to hear back from you about what you want to do. If you would like, as soon as your board agrees to
Yeah.
it, send us your
Yeah.
bylaws by email in Word form, and we'll give you a quick answer
Okay.
about
I'm
what we
gonna
think should be done to
I'm
improve
gonna
them.
slide that in tomorrow's agenda. I get a chance to slide some stuff in there, so I'm gonna slide that whole thing, the ability to send you bylaws and let you take a look at them. But I'm just, so you'll have the record whether or not
Good.
we call you about it or not. You already have it in hand. Okay. That's so. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Very good
Perfect.
meeting. Very
Okay.
good meeting. I'm so glad to meet you, and
Thank you,
I know
sir.
we're gonna be doing some business in the future. So thank you very
Well, we'd love to be part of your
Thank you.
team.
All right.
I absolutely love the work that you do. Keep it up. Okay, take care.